Good evening. My name is Damien, the tall, friendly Atheist Dad, and host of the Tall, Friendly Atheist Dad podcast. Wherever you are, whatever time of day it is, and whatever part of the world you happen to be in, good morning, good evening, good night, but I hope you are doing well. This evening, I'm joined by JJ, my good friend JJ, over in Scotland, as we do part 13 of reading I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist by Geisler and Turek. JJ, how are you?
Well, I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me back.
No worries. Thank you for accepting the invitation this time round. I know Frank's a bit of a pet peeve of yours, and actually speaking of pet peeve, Cy Ten Bruggencate is apparently back on Twitter.
Oh, is he? Oh, that'll be interesting.
Yes, I think by the looks of it, he's been back on for about a week, and he's got one tweet up, which is basically condolences for Norm Macdonald, which is like, oh geez, that's a lot less fiery than what he would usually be. So anyway, hello, we have a Cash Deep in the chat as well, so let's chuck him in. Cash Deep, good evening.
Good evening to you.
Oh, hello, there's a bit of a noise. Right, there you go.
Yeah, my fan was playing.
Okay,
it's really hot today.
No worries. Anyway, so if you do happen to have the book, we are currently on page 106, and this section of the chapter is titled Proof for God, How Do Atheists Respond? So, 3, 2, 1. How do atheists respond to this proof for God? Some atheists admit there's some kind of designer out there. Astronomer Fred Hoyle had his atheism shaken by the anthropic principle and the complexity he saw in life, which we'll cover in the next 2 chapters. Hoyle concluded, a common-sense interpretation of the facts suggests that a super-intellect has monkeyed with physics, as well as chemistry and biology, and that there are no blind forces worth speaking about in nature. While Hoyle was vague about just who this super-intellect is, he recognized that the fine-tuning of the universe requires intelligence. Other atheists admit design, but then claim there is no designer. They say it all happened by chance. But how can they seriously suggest chance when there's virtually zero probability that all of the 100 plus constants would be as they are in the absence of intelligence? It's not easy. Atheists have had to resort to wild speculation to give chance more of a chance. Their speculation is called the multiple universe theory. According to the multiple universe theory, there actually are an infinite number of universes in existence, and we just happen to be lucky enough to be in the universe with the right conditions. Given an infinite number of universes, these atheists say every set of conditions will occur, including the life-supporting conditions of our universe. There are multiple problems with this multiple universe explanation. First, and most significantly, there's no evidence for it. The evidence shows that all of finite reality came into existence with the Big Bang. Finite reality is exactly what we call the universe. If other finite realities exist, they're beyond our ability to detect. No one has ever observed any evidence that such universes may exist. That's why this multiple universe idea is nothing more than a metaphysical concoction, a fairy tale built on blind faith, as detached from reality as Stephen Hawking's imaginary time. Alright, gentlemen, just on that part there, I know. I actually do find it funny that they poo-poo the idea of the multiple universe theory, going,
multiple universes is just found in, like multiple universe theory can be also found in Bhattacharya faith, Hinduism, and Buddhism also, not in just atheism. So this guy
Okay.
is just being wrong here.
Okay. I'd still argue there's no evidence for it, and like I'm cool with that. But I just find it funny. I just find it funny how they go. There's no evidence for multiple universes, but then believe in a god that is apparently outside of our universe. I mean, like, guys,
That is very contradictory.
exactly. Like, you can't have it both ways. If it exists and it can be detected, then we should believe it. But yeah. Now, just trying to think. It is funny that JJ, you might be more familiar with Fred Hoyle than I am.
No, it's only really a basic kind of understanding I have of Hoyle, just through discussion boards and things. He's not someone.
Oh, okay, all right.
It's not someone I've looked at in any great detail. My sort of complaint here is the use of language, as you're saying. It's the statement of certainty. The evidence shows that all finite reality came into existence. They should really be phrasing it like, at this moment in time, the evidence seems to point to, things like that. They're not using any academic language at all here. And they say that there's no evidence for multiverse. What's the evidence for God then?
Yeah, exactly.
At least,
exactly.
At least these guys provide equations and support for their theories. Mm-hmm. Frank supports things like the principle of embarrassment, things like that. Bible verse. There you go.
Well, firstly,
use of language.
Okay, yeah, all true. Like, firstly, Bible verses, but then, selectively quoting certain scientists. And there was someone the other day. There was someone who I got into a Twitter debate with the other day, who quoted Arno Penzias to me as saying that atheism has no foundation, and they quoted Arno Penzias, saying that about the Big Bang and all that kind of stuff. Well, it's interesting how Penzias gets quoted when one, he was an atheist, and two, some Christians don't even believe the Big Bang. So it's like, well, again, you can't have it both ways. Anyway, I'll continue. 3, 2, 1. Oh, sorry. Yep.
Okay. No, it's okay. I was just agreeing with you.
Oh, well, jeez. Okay, well, that's good. Second, as we discussed in the last chapter, an infinite number of infinite things, whether we're talking about days, books, bangs, or universes, is an actual impossibility. There can't be an unlimited number of limited universes. Actually, I'm gonna pause there. Like, just because someone says multiple universe theory doesn't necessarily mean infinite number of universes theory.
No.
And I think that's a trick of the language as well, in that if you believe in more than one universe, you therefore believe in infinite number of universes. well, no, just because I don't quite buy. There could be only 2 universes. There could be 3. There could be 10. There could be just one. Yeah. It looks like just one for now, but again, like you were saying, JJ, it's the trick of the language.
Yes, and things like virtually no chance. If there's a virtual chance, then there's a chance.
Exactly.
20 billion, it still can happen. It can happen twice in a row as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's the not the Texas sharpshooter fallacy. It's the I'm just trying to think here. So if I think about it, I'll let you know. Anyway, third, even if other universes could exist, they would need fine-tuning to get started just as our universe did. Recall the extreme precision of the Big Bang we described in the last chapter. So positing multiple universes doesn't eliminate the need for a designer. It multiplies the need for a designer. Fourth, the multiple universe theory is so broad that any event can be explained away by it. For example, if we ask, why did the planes hit the World Trade Center and the Pentagon? we need not blame Muslim terrorists. The theory lets us say that we just happen to be in the universe where those planes, though they appear to be flown deliberately into the buildings, actually hit the buildings by accident. With the multiple universe theory, we can even let Hitler off the hook. Perhaps we just happen to be in the universe where the Holocaust appeared to be murder, but actually the Jews secretly conspired with the Germans and sent themselves to the ovens. In fact, the multiple universe theory is so broad that it can even be used to excuse the atheists who made it up. Perhaps we just happen to be in the universe where people are irrational enough to suggest that such nonsense is the truth.
All right.
Were you guys about to say something?
All right, but first off, atheists did not make the multiverse theory first. Actually, the multiverse theory was actually before that. Before that in Bhagavata Purana and Yoga Vasishtha. So let me give you the direct verse from that text. Anantani Jagatana Brahmatam, meaning or translation. They are innumerable scattered. Scattered in the vacuum of Brahma's essence. So yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
So that was pretty false information there about atheists creating the multiverse theory, and also if there is no evidence of the multiverse theory at all, we have no problem with that also. But why are you believing in a God that has no evidences also? So that's a real question here.
Yes, that's part of the like on the face of it, an infinite number of universes, isn't a horrible thing. It's just that we have no way of
knowing.
Correct. But if God is powerful enough to create one universe, then I don't see if God did exist, why he can't create numerous other ones. And it's like, well, okay.
But that's only in. That's only Christianity. In Hinduism, actually, like I give you a verse in Hindu. In Hinduism, it basically said that Brahma created an infinite number of universes, but
Yeah.
So that's the thing. It only applies to Christianity's version of God. So not so not the Indic one or the Eastern one, technically.
Okay, that's it's interesting getting your perspective on these, because we don't know the Eastern religion scriptures very well, so it's good that it's interesting. Anyway, I'll read this last paragraph before we get to the next section. In the end, the multiple universe theory is simply a desperate attempt to avoid the implications of design. It doesn't multiply chances, it multiplies absurdities. It's akin to the Apollo 13 astronauts denying the fact that NASA designed and built their spacecraft in favour of the unsupported theory that there are an infinite number of naturally occurring spacecraft out there, and the astronauts are just lucky to be on one that happens to support life. Such a theory is, of course, nonsense, and its obvious absurdity reveals how strong the evidence for design really is. Extreme evidence calls for extreme theories to explain it away. Alright, so that's the end of that section, and I wanted to quickly touch back on the previous paragraph, where he goes, with the multiple universe theory, we can even let Hitler off the hook. Like, I'm almost not surprised that, some discussion of Christian apologetics almost always involves Hitler in some aspect, It's
Hitler gets off the hook in Christianity as well. What's to stop Hitler getting off the hook? This is a strange thing that they mention Hitler regularly. But if Hitler repented, he's in heaven now, and somebody like Gandhi is in hell burning. Well, they will be in hell burning after Judgment Day. And one of the things that keeps recurring with these two is just these blanket statements. Atheists believe this. Atheists came up with this idea. Yet they fail to name a single atheist that has anything to do with it. They would just take their word for it. Atheists made up this.
Actually, no. They do name.
Well, which atheists?
I was going to say that they do name atheists, but they maybe give one or two sentences from that atheist.
Yeah.
And as if those. Sorry.
See,
say that
the guy that named is like 100 years.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, so I was going to say that they name they quote one or two atheists and quote them as if they speak for all of atheism.
Yeah. And they're dated as well. They're very dated, these
Correct.
Guys that they're quoting. Like 60, 70 years ago they're quoting from.
Yes, I was going to say that is the other thing as well. It's like... No, sorry to keep interrupting you. Anyway, let's get to the next section, which is God, look to the heavens. On February the 1st, 2003, President George Bush solemnly peered into a TV camera to address the American people. My fellow Americans, this day has brought terrible news and great sadness to our country. At 9:00 a.m. this morning, Mission Control in Houston lost contact with our space shuttle Columbia. A short time later, debris was seen falling from the skies above Texas. The Columbia is lost. There are no survivors. Travelling at 12,500 miles per hour, Columbia disintegrated as it attempted to re-enter the Earth's atmosphere. The second great shuttle tragedy left the nation shaken, but not deterred. The cause in which they died will continue, the President vowed. Mankind is led into the darkness beyond our world by the inspiration of discovery and the longing to understand. Our journey into space will go on. Yet any human journey into space will penetrate only a tiny fraction of it. There are 100 billion stars in our galaxy, and the average distance between those stars is 30 trillion miles. By the way, this distance is another anthropic constant. If the stars were closer together or farther apart, planetary orbits would be affected. How far is 30 trillion miles? Let's put it this way. When the space shuttle is in orbit, it travels at about 17,000 miles per hour, almost 5 miles per second. If you get in the space shuttle and speed through space at nearly 5 miles per second, it would take you 201,450 years to travel 30 trillion miles. In other words, if you had gotten into the space shuttle at the time of Christ and began travelling from our sun toward another star an average distance away, you would only be 1/100th of the way there right now. Incredible. Now keep in mind, that's just the distance between 2 of the 100 billion stars in our galaxy. How many stars are there in the entire universe? The number of stars in the universe is equal to about the number of sand grains on all the beaches on all the Earth. At about 5 miles per second, it will take you over 200,000 years to go from one grain of sand to another. The heavens are awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna like, I don't get like why he's doing all these big numbers. You know, it's like, wow, space is really far, and there's lots of things in space, and they're really far, apart. Okay, cool. That's a really good argument for God.
Yeah.
You know, I just don't get. Okay, sure, that's okay. We'll see what it says in the next section. The Bible tells us to look to the heavens if we want to get an idea of what God is like. Expressing the teleological argument long before Newton and Paley, David wrote in Psalm 19, "The heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands." A couple of centuries later, the prophet Isaiah posed a question from God. "To whom will you compare me? Or who is my equal?" says the Holy One. Isaiah 40:25. The answer is in the next verse. "Lift your eyes and look to the heavens." Isaiah goes on to say that God knows all of heaven's stars by name. Why does God tell us to compare him with the heavens? Because God has no limits, and from our perspective, neither do the heavens. God is the unlimited limiter, the uncreated creator of all things. He's the self-existing, infinite being who created this vast and beautiful universe out of nothing and who holds it all together today. There's only one entity in our experience that can provide an analogy to the infinity of God. An image intended to depict God won't do. It merely limits his majesty. Only the heavens scream out infinity. Infinity is what describes each of God's attributes, including his power, knowledge, justice, and love. This is why the Bible uses the heavens to help us grasp the infinite height of God's love. Psalm 103:11 says, "For as high as the heavens are above the earth, so great is his love for those who revere him." How high are the heavens above the earth? When you consider that there are 30 trillion miles between stars, as numerous as grains of beach sand, you may as well say the heavens are infinitely high. Indeed, and that's the height of God's love. And I'll read this one last paragraph before we discuss. God's infinite love is perhaps what led President Bush to quote Isaiah in his tribute to Columbia's crew. "In the skies today we saw destruction and tragedy. Yet farther than we can see there is comfort and hope. In the words of the prophet Isaiah, lift your eyes and look to the heavens. Who created all these? He who brings out the starry host one by one and calls them each by name. Because of his great power and mighty strength, not one of them is missing. The same creator who names the stars also knows the names of the 7 souls we mourn today. The crew of the shuttle Columbia did not return safely to Earth, yet we can pray that all are safely home." Alright guys, what do you think of that?
I have literally used that as an excuse to any god.
Correct.
God who is supposed to be an omnipotent, omniscient, and an omnipresent and self-created and uncreated entity like Vishnu and Ur Mazda, and also for the love part, if God loves supposed to be, then why did he kill children and women?
Well, that's because he's an infinite God of justice, you see.
Infinite God of justice. Oh yes, yes, man. Yes, man. Like killing children and women is justice.
Yes, but it's also love. It's also love, Akashdeep. It's is one of his attributes: power, knowledge, justice, and love. But this is interesting because when the Bible uses heavens, it doesn't mean space. The people who wrote the Bible didn't know there was an outer space.
Yeah, you didn't know, like, if you like the heavens is actually supposed to be like an out like an like an roll like an roll outside the the heavens are really space, but but sometimes they use the sky or something. But
It depends on what translation, but you can
yeah, it
use
depends
sky.
on
You
what
can,
translation.
but the way I read the Jewish scriptures was that they believe that there was a covering over the earth, and then you had later on there was a belief that there was 7 layers to the heavens, and so the lowest layer was called the velon, which is another word for curtain, which kind of like reveals the sun. You then had the firmament, and then you kept on climbing up until you got to Arabot, and Arabot is where God has his throne. And in between those different levels of heaven, different things were done. So basically, what Turek and Geisler are doing is that they're retroactively putting, the vast amount of space into what David believed was, sitting right above us. And if you look at, I think Isaiah 40, I think it's 11 or 12, which says that God sits enthroned on the circle of the earth. That verse implies that there is a something encircling the earth that God is sitting on. And so when, Geisler and Turek go, oh my God, it's so beautiful, it's so, vast, it's so infinite, this is what David was talking about when he said, look to the heavens. Well, not really. David would have believed that, everything was inside one layer of heaven. So if you read Genesis 1 says that God fixed, and actually used the words for set, either set or installed. God installed the sun, moon, and stars in one layer of heaven. But JJ, you're about to mention something.
Yeah, there seems to be 2 fallacies, implicit anyway, and that's like the argument from incredulity. And this is why implicitly anyway, they're mentioning, you travel 17,000 miles an hour, it takes you hundreds of thousands of years. Yeah. That's just to obviously lead you. It's impossible, it can't be true. It might appear like that to us at the moment, but that's just because we've got a limited understanding.
We haven't done that yet.
And an argument from scripture as well. As if, I tweeted once about, if keep quoting Bible verses to atheists, and eventually we will believe you. It's pointless quoting Bible. What is the actual point in quoting Bible verses? I mean, take any scripture of any religion. Why specifically the Christian one? And as you mentioned, the Genesis, it speak about all or everything, and Christians tend to add the stars and galaxies onto that. The Hebrews didn't have a clue about Andromeda and all these other constellations. It's just insane. But as you're saying, it's written for a specific audience, and that audience isn't going to be scrutinising these verses. But quoting the Bible is, you could probably find other apologists who would interpret these passages in a different way as well. So how do we know they've got the actual interpretation correct? But in Psalms, you've got all this scientific information at your fingertips. These guys are rattling through a 3,000-year-old religious book.
I know, exactly. And they're like
3,000 years a flat Earth book, more like.
And I suppose the other question that I would have is, what evidence uniquely points to the God of the Bible? There are other creation. There are other creation gods in other religions,
like Brahma, Guru Mazda. Amun Ra.
Yep, Ra. I think Arton also. Marduk gets a run as well. There's a whole heap of, it's just
Chemosh. There's a lot. There's
so yes, yep.
And God's infinite.
And
that last passage, God
and man.
God's
and to be
sorry.
And to be honest, I mean they are like 13 versions of creation in Hindu mythology.
Really?
So it's pretty biggie, yeah, actually. One creation has no God in it.
Mm-hmm.
It's African called Nasariya Sutta, which is basically in creation, creation story as story presented in an agnostic and rationalistic way.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the thing. I mean, they are like,
okay.
I mean, they are like hundreds of creation stories in cultures, and they ignore that.
Well, of course, because that's it's that's what they do. Anyway, I'll read a couple more paragraphs because see where we go from there. Okay, so this heading is titled Conclusion, and there's a couple of pages left in the chapter. So 3, 2, 1. Nearly 2,000 years ago, Paul wrote near the beginning of his letter to the Romans, "For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that men are without excuse. The evidence for a designer certainly is clear in creation, but we often take it for granted." C.S. Lewis, in his classic book The Screwtape Letters, provides a great insight into this tendency we have to take for granted the amazing world all around us. The senior demon, Screwtape, writes some advice to his junior demon, Wormwood, on how to keep people from becoming Christians. Screwtape writes, "Keep pressing home on him the ordinariness of all things. Above all, do not attempt to use science, I mean the real sciences, as a defense against Christianity. They will positively encourage him to think about realities he can't touch and see. There have been sad cases among modern physicists. The sad cases are, of course, physicists who have been honest with the evidence they've seen and have become Christians." So, C.S. Lewis gets a run now as well.
Dragging them all out, eh?
Yeah, I know. And it's interesting that C.S. Lewis does get a quite a frequent run. Are you familiar with C.S. Lewis at all, JJ?
I do have an anthology of his books there I've read a long time ago. I would say
okay.
I'm not... I think he's a very good writer. He's very easy to follow and understand. But I think his apologetics are quite childlike. I think... I used to say I don't think Lewis knew when he was writing for children and when he was writing apologetics.
Okay.
Right.
Because
I do like the way. I do like his style. I do like his writing style. But
indeed. No, I
seems very childlike.
Okay, I'll say I've read his stuff in part, and I don't think it's bad, but
no, it's not.
Yeah,
bad.
it's just that. What do you say? But how can I put it? I got into a Twitter debate about Satan, and the Christians, multiple Christians, brought up C.S. Lewis, and they all brought up the Screwtape Letters. And so then I asked them, well, look, okay, why should I take note of what C.S. Lewis says? And they go, oh, but he was a good writer. Okay, he's a good writer. That doesn't say, you know, that, like, why should I pay his theology any mind? You know, in order to believe what he has to say about things that he can't prove.
Yeah. It's this argument from what they think is an authority, because he was such a popular author. You know, he's such a well-known author, but that doesn't affect your arguments in any way at all. And,
Look, it's
I think a lot of these Christians, though, you know, they're just repeating things without fully understanding them. I think, you know, like, Lewis is a good author. He's got a lot of strong arguments. I think they just repeat that without actually going and investigating what he's actually saying. It's the same with a lot of apologetics, I suppose. They just take what they think is going to suit them at that time, you know. I think he's worth reading, right? I've got quite a big book there. It's got 4 or 5 of his books in it, and I've sort of scanned through it. Like, it's finding it. I get fed up with these too easily. You know, when they start repeating the same arguments, you're right, not this again. Because when you think about it, they've got a very limited amount of arguments, and all it is sort of dressing it up in a different costume. You know, like the design argument.
Yeah,
it's a watch, now it's an iPhone. You know.
Yeah, it's a car running out of petrol. It's a, you know, it's a, you know, it's something. It's always, but the thing is, like,
sorry.
Well, I was going to say, it's all it's all philosophical, like, you know.
And it's that's right. It's always ambiguous, and it's always organic and inorganic. You know, like Hovind's roller skate becoming a Volkswagen Beetle or something like that. And that's why evolution's false. You know, they compares things that are manufactured with things in nature. And I think this is a good argument.
Yep. All right, I'll get into the next paragraph. Lewis has hit on a tendency many of us have. In our fast-paced lives, we rarely stop and observe the world around us and, therefore, tend to consider every amazing facet of this beautiful universe as ordinary. But as we have seen, it is anything but ordinary. Now science is showing us, like at no other time in history, that this is a universe of incredible design and complexity. It's giving us a new perspective on a world that we too often take for granted. Now, this is something struck me just then as I was reading that. This implies that the universe was made for us, and specifically for us. But I don't get that, because as soon as we get even to the upper parts of the atmosphere of this particular planet, you know, we need to be in a pressurized container. Otherwise, you know, we will die. You know, if we go into outer space, you know, we need an expensive and heavy suit to both give us air and to protect us from the radiation.
Yeah.
You see, basically, you see, basically, the universe isn't really made for us. The universe won't really care. The universe won't really care if your planet got destroyed by meteoroid at any time. There are basically like billions of planets. A planet in your universe. So that statement itself is wrong.
So can you say that last part again?
So I was basically saying. So I was basically saying that the universe isn't really made for us. Why? Because you see the universe won't really care. The universe won't really care if your planet got destroyed by a meteor,
Oh, correct. Yep.
Meteor or overnight, they are they are I mean there are like I mean there are like there are like billions of planets
Yep.
in your uh, in your universe. So so that statement itself is wrong.
Well, yeah, so you're right. Like, meteors can kill us in an instant, and the universe will still, the universe will still go on.
Yeah, that's my point.
So I do like, and to say that, oh, indeed, and I suppose to say that the universe is beautiful, like, the universe is only beautiful from the limited perspective that we have. It's not like we can go. It's not like we can go for a drive down the universe, and go to our favourite spot. We're just stuck on this one planet. In order to, and we can see either stars or more stars. Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, if you are, yeah, let me give you an example. If you if you were on Venus, you from one's limited perspective, the universe was the universe would seem terrifying around us. We're just really stuck on this planet with life on it.
Yep, we're for the time being we're stuck here, and the fact that if we wanted to go to another planet, we would have to terraform that planet, and mold it to be to suit us.
Yes, correct.
So I suppose the design argument. Well, yeah, actually, Mars might be a good place to live, given there's no coronavirus on Mars.
There's no problem.
Would it not be more impressive if Earth was the only planet there was? Would that not be more? Why create trillions of stars just so we could live on one wee planet? Is that a bit of a waste, in my opinion?
And I'd say we're not even on the biggest planet either. There's a planet like 300 times bigger than the one we're on. It's like, well, why don't you give us that one? But no, we're on this small one. That's it.
A planet that a lot of the planet that we're on, we can't even survive there. How long will we last? Like 70-80% of the planet we can't live on.
Correct. Yeah. So we're stuck on the surface. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's
we're stuck on the surface. Oh yeah, blame the. Yeah, so like we're stuck on the surface. We can't breathe underwater. We can't go too low. We can't go too high. But it's perfect design. It's completely perfect design. Otherwise.
Yeah, it is perfect design. The Bible. The Bible also says that. The Bible also says that God has created man in a perfect way. Which is totally incorrect.
Indeed.
We also shovel food into the same tube that we breathe through. That's a good design as well. Shovel as much food into your breathing tube as you can.
But I just wonder if later in the book that will be pulled out as as an argument in some aspect. Like, we've already had Hitler as an argument. We've already had selective quotations of certain physicists from the last century as evidence. So yeah, we'll see where we go.
and we had also like agreements for like being like multiverse theory created by atheists.
Oh yeah, indeed. Like there's possibly no Christian physicists who pose a multi-universe theory. No, none whatsoever. No, find that. Anyway, I'm gonna wrap it up here tonight, guys. I'm getting a little bit late, so
Okay.
JJ and Akash Deep, thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time.
Okay. Good night. Thank you.
Have a good night. Look after yourselves, guys.
I am sure